The Split Decision Podcast, episode number 76, here with my always brilliant and beautiful co-host, the Fight Geek. Fight Geek, how you doing today, man?
Doing good, man. You sound like you're in a good mood. Big week for you with DC fighting, huh?
Ooh, I'm stoked. I'm in a hugely great mood because of UFC 252, and I'm in a very bad mood for having all my parlays on Alexei Oleinik last weekend. That did not work out in my financial favor.
That did not work out in your favor at all, but we'll get into that.
We'll get into it. Okay, guys, here's what's on tap today. First, we've got my opening question for Fight Geek. Then after that, we're going to recap UFC Vegas 6. Derek Lewis had an extremely impressive win over Alexei Oleinik. And then after that, our UFC 252 preview and picks, followed finally by my favorite section, listener questions and more. So, Fight Geek, let me start off with this question for you. So, obviously, I was completely wrong. I said that Alexei Oleinik was going to get the sub of Derek Lewis in the first round. He kind of almost submitted him, but not, he did not get it, obviously. Got stopped in the following round, and now Derek Lewis is looking quite good. My question to you is, if you're Derek Lewis, who do you want to fight next? Or maybe do you want to just sit on the sidelines and see what happens with Stipe DC 3? I've seen Curtis Blades has already called out Derek Lewis. Do you take that fight if you're Derek, or do you sit on the sidelines and see how things play out?
Yeah, I mean, with the landscape of heavyweight kind of up in the air until we see what happens this coming weekend, I actually do think that the Blades versus Lewis fight is the fight to make here. Blades is kind of in a tricky situation because he's lost to Francis twice. So, yeah, I think that fight could make a lot of sense at this time. I know the Beast has a victory over Francis, so that fight's still on the table. I'm just not sure that we will know much about what Francis is doing next until after this weekend. So, for the time being, I do think the Blades fight makes sense.
Yeah, I do have to agree with you, although I admit that it's risky. Many could argue, well, Derek should just wait. Like you just said, Fight Geek, he's up 1-0 against Ngannou. So, if Ngannou gets that belt, or if Stipe, for whatever reason, is not in the vacant title fight, or DC is not in the vacant title fight, then, Lewis makes a lot of sense. But I actually agree with you. I think that there's just too many moving parts, especially when you consider John Jones potentially spoiling the party and entering the picture. Derek Lewis should take that Curtis Blades fight, and I think it'll be tough. But I think Derek Lewis has him.
You think Derek Lewis takes Blades?
Not easily, but I've been after the incredible improvements that I've seen in his grappling and specifically his submission defense lately. I think so.
I know he had a win, but was his grappling, was it that drastically improved? I mean, he was held down for the majority of the first end of the first round. So,
well, Alexei couldn't get him to tap or go out. That's for sure.
Well, that's true, which showed incredible toughness. And even Black Beast on the post-fight interview said that he was considering tapping. That's how close it was. My point is that I would say that while Oleinik is a little more dangerous with the submission game, Blades is much more dominant with his top game when it comes to ground and pound and control. So I don't think that's necessarily a great matchup for Derek Lewis, but I do think it makes sense on paper for both of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so moving on to a quick recap of UFC Vegas 6. I've been on a little bit of a main event bump. I've not been doing well in main events lately, Fight Geek. I don't like it. I went out of my way last week to take a chance and say Alexei Oleinik via submission. I felt great about it, and look what happens. Blows up in my face.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the easy one, but...
Oh, that was the easy decision? That was the easy choice for you?
Well, I thought it was an easy choice. Like I said,
Lewis, you just said that Lewis said that he almost tapped.
Well, he did almost tap. That he go to the ground and came out and knocked him out in 21 seconds. So if he had that urgency earlier, that's what I ultimately saw happening.
Got it. Okay. All right. Fair enough. So
is that firmly on the fence to make my point?
I think it's fair. All right.
Okay.
Okay. So moving on. Let's just quickly fly through this card. There's some quick stuff.
Let's just call out the highlights. I mean,
Andrew Sanchez defeats Wellington Turman at 4 minutes and 14 seconds.
That was impressive. Probably Sanchez's best performance. Put it all together. So, yeah, that was a big fight for him. I actually like Wellington Turman. I think he's a tough guy, hits hard. So that was a fun fight. Really impressed with Sanchez there.
Kevin Holland, TKO right cross, 32 seconds of round number 3 against Joaquin Buckley.
Yeah. I've been a huge fan of Kevin Holland since he debuted. I know he's a little wacky, a little off the wall, but I think the talent is clearly there. He kind of reminds me of like a more likable, like younger John Jones, kind of his style. He's long. He uses his range. He uses the kicks. He's super versatile.
He reminds me a lot of John Jones, except he's not a 4-time drug cheat and a horrible person. But yeah.
But I mean, you don't see the fighting similarities.
No, I'm kidding. I totally do. I'm just being a jerk.
So yeah, I mean, I could not be more impressed with that performance by him. He was taking on a guy who was, I wouldn't say a favorable matchup to him, but was a comfortable matchup in a way. And he really looked good. I mean, he took on a hard charging guy, played the matador, and landed the bigger shots. And the knockout was surprising. You don't really see him as a guy that carries that kind of power, but it was a big shot.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Now, do you think, really quickly, and I want to move on from this fight, but do you think Kevin Holland deserves a ranked opponent at 185 next?
Sure, why not? I mean, 185 is not the most deepest division on the roster, and when you look at that performance, I mean, of course, I think he's definitely trending in that direction. I mean, he's taken some short notice fights. He's fought some super tough guys. I think he fought Thiago Santos at 185 in his debut. I could be wrong, but I know he's taken on a. Say again.
Oh no, I just said possible. I got to look that up. But yeah.
But he's taken on a lot of tough guys. He's had some. Like I said, he's a little wacky, but when he puts it together, you can see that there's a chance to be special.
Absolutely agree. And by the way, wacky's fine with me. It's better than boring, right? I mean, don't want to be
Well, that's
boring.
true, but you just don't want it to get in the way of winning, which it didn't this weekend, and I think it has in the past, and that's what bothers people.
Okay, fair enough. So I'm looking at middleweight right now, and I'm thinking number 15, Antonio Carlos Jr. I'm looking at 12, Brad Tavares, or 11, Omari Akhmedov. What do you think of those three?
Yeah, I don't love those.
Okay,
fights.
Who would you prefer?
Ian
Heinisch,
that
Marvin
lineup,
Vettori?
I'd say Brad Tavares would make the most sense.
Yeah.
But I mean, I wouldn't even mind seeing him against someone like Edmund Shabazian at this point. That'd be a fun fight.
No, absolutely. I actually have my own thoughts on who Edmund Shabazian should fight next, but I don't want to.
So do I. So I was just throwing that out. But yeah, I mean, there's that division's not super deep. So again, I throw Marvin Vettori out every week, but
it's getting deeper by the day though.
It is getting deeper with guys like Kevin Holland, but I mean, you throw Kevin Holland in there with Marvin Vettori, that's a fun fight. It's going to have some good action back and forth.
Right. So here's my only thing, Fight Geek. I'm thinking, Marvin Vettori's he's very outspoken about, he really
he wants to fight up.
Sure. I feel like he'd get, in his defense, I feel like Marvin deserves a fight up too.
Yeah, well, we're going to get to another guy who I think makes a lot of sense too, Stewart, who beat my guy Maki Pitolo. That could be a good fight, Holland versus Stewart, or did we see that one already?
Ooh, Darren Stewart versus I mean, that sounds like that makes a lot of sense. By the way, so as long as we're skipping around to the Darren Stewart fight, I won't forget last week.
Yeah, I served that one up for you. Go ahead, have your moment.
You said you're wrong in a very offensive tone, and I was very offended.
You're right. I was a little arrogant there, but I do think Mackie was doing very well until he got caught in a crazy submission. So, I mean, it is what it is.
Very fair, very fair. I'm just giving you a hard time. But as far as Darren Stewart, I'm sorry, who were you saying that you think he should fight?
Kevin Holland would be a good matchup.
No, they have not. They have not fought.
So that fight made a lot of sense. Both guys come wins, have had some mixed results, but both have some good, potential at breaking the top 15. So that fight makes a lot of sense.
And this is
neither of them took any real damage either.
This is really random, just really quick. Darren Stewart, he doesn't look similar to, he looks exactly like my ex Muay Thai coach, who's still a very close friend of mine, but that's random, but they look identical.
Good to know. He looks pretty similar to Tyron Woodley as well.
He's better looking than Tyron. Tyron's got little beady eyes, but yes, I mean, I sort of, but.
I'll let you be the judge of that.
Okay, all right. Okay. Nice one. All right. Okay. Moving on to the main card. You went ahead to Darren Stewart, Maki Pitolo, but you skipped. But Neil Dariush defeating Scott Holtzman with a KO spinning back fist, 4 minutes and 38 seconds.
Unbelievable.
Round one.
It seemed like Dariush almost started slow, and then he got a couple eye pokes. He got pissed off, and then you really saw his aggression kind of ramp up. And then he started marching Holtzman down, with not something you see a lot in Holtzman fights. He's usually the guy engaged or dictating the terms. So super impressive stuff from Dariush.
Absolutely.
Seems to have bounced back and tripped towards the right direction. Definitely should be in line for, a top 12 guy at this point.
Yeah, but I wanted to talk about Beneil just for a quick second. He's one of those guys, Fight Geek, that's really interesting to me. He's been on my radar for a long time. I've always liked him, but obviously he's had a long career of ups and downs in the UFC, and it's very nice to see him finally kind of putting everything together. Having said that, I feel personally that I just still have no idea what his ceiling is, like none. Do you feel this way or no?
Yeah, I kind of get that feeling. I mean, I'm ready to say he has an elite ceiling, but he's obviously a jiu-jitsu guy who's transitioned with Cordero, became a great striker. So yeah, I don't know. Is he the kind of guy who could occupy that Paul Felder type 7, 8, 9 space? Probably.
I'm not. Yeah, to me that's a fascinating question.
Yeah, so his ceiling is probably a 6, 7, 8 fighter in the lightweight division, which is arguably the most stacked division on the roster. So, I mean, pretty darn good.
Yeah, I'm trying to look at potential next opponents for him. I don't know if you have any in mind. What's going on with Diego Ferreira?
Not sure, but that makes a lot of sense. Both of those guys are due for a big fight. So
Diego's the number 8 contender at lightweight all of a sudden. He kind of snuck in there fast, but he's amazing.
Yeah, for sure. There's always the usual suspects that don't have fights. Also, the Charles Oliveira's, the Ali Akintas, the guys like that. Gregor Gillespie's going to have to come back at some point. Alexander Hernandez. So there's all kinds of guys.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, moving on. And really quick, this fight wasn't great. We don't need to talk too much about it. Yana Kunitsakaya, a.k.a.
I can't believe you're even going to bring it up.
Versus Yulia Stodyarenko. Well, Yana had a big win, and she's now very serious with Santos, isn't she? Isn't she Mareta's girlfriend?
Is that relative to her performance last week?
No, I don't mean that. Oh my gosh! Why are you trying to stop trying to get me to put my foot in my mouth? I was impressed with Yana's performance. I brought it up because she said that Santos had a lot to do with her improvements, and I wanted to ask your opinion. That's all.
Yeah. I didn't have a lot of thoughts on this fight. I didn't think she looked like she had a lot of improvements. She was basically hanging on to the clinch for the most of the fight, wasn't she?
Yeah. Okay.
So I didn't see a lot of vast improvements that led me to believe that, there was another level we haven't seen from her. Yes, any win in the UFC is a good, but I wasn't overly impressed.
Okay, fine. Fair enough. Let's move on to the co-main event. Chris Weidman defeats Omari Akhmedov. Another fight that I got wrong. This was a brutal card for me. I'm not gonna lie.
I think I got this fight wrong too.
This was a brutal card for me.
Like I said last week, until you saw Chris Weidman, put a win together, it was hard to pick him.
And he barely won. I mean, it was 1-1
He did barely win,
third.
but I hear a lot of people taking a little bit away from his win, but he did beat the number 11 guy who was on a winning streak in the division. So it was a solid win. It's a credible win. And although it wasn't super, flashy and exciting, I mean, that was a much-needed win versus a top 15 guy for Chris Weidman. I mean, in my opinion, that was almost like career-saving in a way.
Career saving. I don't know if I'd look at it in such a rosy way as that.
Well, as far as now, he's at least after winning that fight. There's fights now where he can co-main or potentially even, headline again. Imagine Derek Brunson versus Chris Weidman. That could be a headliner, So
Oh my gosh, don't do that to Chris. You think that will go well for Chris?
I don't hate that fight at all.
Derek's been looking good, man. I don't know about that one.
Well, I'm just saying that could be an intriguing main event if they need to fill a slot or something like that. So I do think there's better fights for him. We had just talked about Edmund Shabazian. Edmund Shabazian versus Chris Weidman is an intriguing fight to me as well.
Stole my pick.
Yeah, I knew that you were going to do that, so I had to get it.
Well, that's because I stole it from DC. Let's just be completely honest.
But it makes a lot of sense, does it not?
Oh, I think it definitely does. I think that's the fight.
But my point is, if Chris loses that fight this weekend, it's hard to see the UFC putting him in any of those fights. So in a way, it was career saving. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do get what you're saying there. And then,
where would he have gone after going to lightweight, getting knocked out, coming down, losing to this guy? There would really be no path back to relevancy.
Yeah, so really quick, I want your thoughts on this. So it was reported today that Luke Rockhold is not retiring, and he has specifically called out Chris Weidman, who he already beat, for a rematch, which is one of the most Luke Rockhold things of all time.
Isn't that his last win? Or no, he beat David Branch.
But yeah, it's not his last win. It's one of his last wins, and it's very Luke Rockhold of him to call out someone he's already beaten.
I'm not a big fan of that fight. I don't even see why Chris would take that fight. Like I just said, he just won a fight versus a credible top 15 guy. He should be looking for another fight that is relevant. I think the least relevant thing right now there is Luke Rockhold coming back to, the middleweight division after having his weight cuts, after having his chin basically expired. I mean, I just don't. That fight does not do much for me at this point.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. It seems like we
both...
Do
you agree?
I do agree. I mean, look. You want me to be, if I'm going to be frank here, Fight Geek, Weidman and Rockhold they should both hang it up. They're over. And what I mean by they're over
is... Weidman just beat the number 11 ranked guy in the world in his weight class.
Is Weidman going to get into the top 5?
I don't know, but can the guy make
you don't know?
Beating top 15
you don't know?
guys? He just proved that he can.
So you think he might get into the top 5 again? Come on.
I don't think it's probable, but as long as he alternates wins and losses and isn't getting knocked out every single fight, isn't it his right to continue making a living he loves?
Yeah, it was BJ Penn's right to continue making a living he loved. I didn't like that one either.
BJ Penn's won 9-1 in his last 11. That's much different than Chris Weidman, who...
He was 1-5. He was 1-5 before this, wasn't he? In his last 6?
Sure. But we can go back and it's, fine-tooth comb. Chris was winning half of those fights that he ended up losing, whereas BJ Penn was never competitive in the majority of those fights. So that's not a fair comparison at all. But I see where you're going. I would say that Luke Rockhold's more in danger of going down the BJ Penn route than Chris is at this point.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't think either of them are in a particularly good position.
I don't either, but I don't think...
Weidman got to win. Weidman got to win. You're right. I got to give him credit.
But it's not. It's more than just a win. It's a credible win versus the 11th ranked guy. So it sets up another relevant fight.
That's very fair.
When was the last time Luke Rockhold had a relevant win? I don't see why he would even deserve the Weidman fight right now.
That's also fair. Look, and I'm not going to sit here trying to argue for Luke Rockhold.
And I'm a guy who's a pseudo Luke Rockhold fan back in the day.
You are the only one. You are the only one.
The guy had a lot of talent, but at this point, he looked horrible when he got knocked out by Jan Blachowicz. So,
well, he didn't have a chance there. That was,
Well, he went there because he couldn't cut weight effectively anymore, and it was really hurting him. So now he's going to cut weight again. Now that his chin has been, exposed. Now he's going to cut more weight. I don't understand how that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, I agree. And okay, moving on to the main event. Derek Lewis defeats Alexei Oleinik. Again, I admit it. I took an L on this one. I was pretty sure about Oleinik. A little too sure. Lost a lot of money that I'll never get back. Let's not talk about it.
Hey, it was interesting if nothing else, right?
Oh, it was really interesting. Derek Lewis... Can we just say how much Derek Lewis has improved? It's kind of insane to think about how I don't think people realize how much he's improved.
For sure. If you think about the kind of fighter he was when he debuted and, was very raw to the fighter he is today, there's no doubt he's improved immensely. But I think Derek Lewis's true value is kind of like, a cult personality. I think people are going to remember Derek Lewis probably for his personality more so than the fact that he's the all-time knockouts leader in the heavyweight division. I just think he's super beloved. He's must-see TV. And that's going to be that way, win, lose, or draw. I just think he's kind of reached this like fan favorite level that few people really ever reach.
Yeah, I agree. And, if I'm being honest, and this probably isn't a fan-friendly answer, but if I'm Derek Lewis's manager, I'm saying, Derek, congrats on the win. I actually want you to chill for a hot minute. Just chill out. Don't accept any fights. And the reason I say that, Fight Geek, is because I do believe very seriously that Ngannou will become champion soon. And either they make Ngannou versus Lewis for the vacant belt, or worst case scenario, in my opinion, again, a lot of Stipe fans are going to strongly disagree with me here. I get that. I think he's going to beat Stipe, and then Lewis has a huge argument to be calling Francis out. Hey man, you scared of me? I already beat you once. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. The only thing is the Black Beast just doesn't seem overly concerned about calling out the champions. He's just kind of workmanlike in the way he calls people out. So I don't know if he would really be searching for that matchup, but I think at some point that matchup would certainly be available.
Yep, definitely. Okay, so are we ready to move on to our UFC 252 preview and picks?
Let's go.
Whoa, let's do it. 252, Miocic versus Cormier 3. Guys, I'm so stoked.
Are you going to have an illegal fight party in California?
I am not. All joking aside, I don't know how it is in the other states, but Cali is they really are very cruel, and they shame people that have parties right now, which is intense.
So you're watching the biggest fight of your life all alone?
I'll be watching it with actually the lady friend,
okay.
So not entirely alone. But
that is big. You're some lady friend, some new lady friend may be exposed to you watching DC lose.
She doesn't know what
this could not be good for all parties involved.
Well, it cannot be good for the future of this. That's for sure. I think she'll be like, okay, and get me out. Hello, police, 911, get me out of here.
Or you'll be sobbing hysterically.
So that's why she'll be saying, get me the police, I want out. I'll be crying hysterically in the corner.
I'm just kidding. Okay.
I'm not. I'll be crying hysterically in the corner, and she'll be calling the police. Okay, moving on. All right, so the main card starts off with Jim Miller versus Vince Pichel.
Yeah, fun fight. I like this fight a lot. I actually like both guys. I'm going to take Jim Miller via second-round submission.
Ugh. I'm going to take Jim Miller via unanimous decision in a tight one. Guys,
it's going to be tight.
It's going to be close.
Vince is a tough guy, great striker. Probably will give Jim some problems on his feet, but I just think, Jim has had some solid performances of late. Looks to be rounding back into form. He's just a little too wily on the ground.
Totally agree. Moving on, John Dodson versus Merab Dvalishvili. I'll take this one first. So John Dodson is the number 9 bantamweight worldwide. Merab the number 18. So Dodson being the definitely the favorite here in terms of ranking. I have got Merab. If there's one fighter that I've watched at 135 over and over and just said, I would really hate to fight him, it's Merab. He is just the definition of a nightmare matchup. I mean, he really is.
Yeah, but I'll counter with this. John Dodson has the kind of footwork and speed to kind of expose the sloppiness Merab shows on the feet. Merab throws a lot of winging, wild, out-of-control shots on the feet. John Dodson's going to be hard. He's going to be hard to catch that way. So, I mean, Dodson has a way to win this fight if he can keep it standing. But with that said, So this is a tough fight. I'm actually looking forward to this one. I just talked myself into it. I'm going to take John Dodson by decision.
And I'm going to take Merab by decision.
Should be good, though.
Yeah. Oh, I can't wait for that fight. But, guys, don't put money on it. I ain't touching that fight with a 10-foot pole.
Agreed.
Yeah. Okay, next, Junior Dos Santos versus Jairzinho Rosenstrike.
Again, another solid fight on this card.
I have a weird feeling it's going to be pretty good.
Yeah, I do. I mean, look at the names in the matchups; they should be good. Jairzinho Rosenstrike obviously got knocked out by Francis and was basically being outclassed by Overeem on the feet until he landed a big bomb. So with that said, I think Junior Dos Santos and his technical boxing will be just too much, and I'm taking Junior Dos Santos via unanimous decision.
Interesting. I'm going to take, so to be clear, I do not think your choice is foolish. I mean, I love to talk shit about Fight Geek, guys. You know that. I love to bash his opinions if I think they're bashable.
How dare you?
I think it's a decent pick. However, I'll still disagree with it because I do disagree with it. And I've got Rosenstrike winning via second round TKO. I just think he's going to catch JDS. That's all. I think he's got power and he's going to catch him.
It's definitely possible. So, but obviously Dos Santos is the more polished boxer. So
yeah.
It should be good. It should be fun.
It should be a lot of fun. Which
brings us to the co-main, which is an unbelievable fight. This is probably the fight that I'm most excited for on the card, believe it or not.
More than
Sean O'Malley versus Chito Vera. Yeah, I mean, this is interesting, man.
Oh, no, this is great. Yeah. So this is a great one. Obviously, Chito Vera is a true large step up for Sugar Sean. For some reason, it's listing Marlon Vera as number 80. I know that's not right. It's saying featherweight worldwide. Not sure why it's ranking him by featherweight. Obviously, it's a bantamweight bout. But Sean O'Malley versus Chito Vera is going to be really fun. I think Sean's going to be tested. I think he's going to be pushed. I think it's going to be a great fight. And I think Sean O'Malley is going to knock him out brutally in the third round in a great fight.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely going to be back and forth. They're going to be landing on each other. Both of them very good strikers. But, yeah, I kind of see it that way. I just think that hard to pick against Chito, one of my favorites. But, Sean with his distance control and his striking power and kind of his versatility, I think is just going to be too much. And I'm not seeing a stoppage. I'm going to say Sean via decision.
All right. And now time for the main event. Oh, man. Stipe Miocic versus Daniel Cormier. Fight Geek. Break it down for us. Who you got and why?
Well, I mean, based on the previous action, DC has really dominated the majority of the action between them so far. I'm leaning towards Daniel Cormier. I just think that he actually has been very comfortable on the feet with Stipe, which is a place where I thought Stipe would have a bigger advantage. And I've heard Stipe making comments about wrestling shoes and wanting to wrestle, and I'm just not sure that that's going to be a path to victory either versus DC. So I'm taking DC, and I know I keep saying this, but by decision. I see a lot of decisions in these close fights this weekend. So Daniel Cormier via split decision.
Wow. And you think that, okay, that's fascinating. Hold up. Before I go to my pick, Daniel via split decision is extra fascinating for me because you think that the judges would not at all be inappropriately swayed if it was that close to favor the guy who said he isn't going to retire?
I don't think about those things, Phil. That's a conspiracy theory.
Well, that's nice of you that you don't think about it. But
I go into the fight hoping for the best and not, thinking of all the things that could be diabolical about it.
Okay, well, just because you're not corrupt doesn't mean that.
No, I don't think so. I think they'll judge the action, and I just think that, DC has proven to be just a slightly better striker in the exchanges with Stipe, and then if it's wrestling, I just don't see Stipe out wrestling DC. So I just think he has a slight edge in those areas, and that'll be enough to get a slight victory.
All right, I love it. So this fight Geek, I can say, I know that I sometimes am hyperbolic, say a lot of I use a lot of hyperbole, but in the 76 episodes of this show so far, I can confirm 100% that I've never gone back and forth more in a pick than Miocic Cormier 3. I just haven't. A lot of people assume that I just choose Fights based on who I like. Everyone knows I'm Team DC 100% in this, obviously. But I always choose based on who I think will win. Now, Daniel has explained a wrestle-heavy game plan that, on paper sounds great. The problem is it sounds like he's looking to essentially wrestle Stipe down for 25 minutes and get that decision. I'm concerned. I'm concerned about it, and I won't lie.
But is that a little tongue in cheek from him? Because the last fight he lost, his corner was basically saying like wrestle more, wrestle more. He got so comfortable on the feet that he kind of lost that mindset. So is that just something he's saying based on the prior results to kind of create this new narrative? Like, I'm not going to forget my wrestling this time. Is this something you actually think he'll be trying to do?
So
the majority of the fight.
That's a great question, Fight Geek. I don't know, and I'm taking Daniel at his word that he's planning to wrestle the whole time. You're 100% right. It could be a trick. Absolutely. But
just the narrative based on what he failed to do the last time. You know what I mean?
Right. What I'm concerned about is that it's a 5-round fight, that Cormier is a dinosaur in the ultimate twilight of his career, and that he wants to wrestle for 25 minutes. Because what happened in the second fight? The truth is he got really tired. So that's...
Well, yeah, because he was on his feet and started taking big, heavy shots.
But isn't you're going to say wrestling isn't exhausting for 25 minutes?
Well, I'm not going to say it's exhausting, but Daniel Cormier is a guy who has a lifetime in a wrestling room. He could probably do that with his eyes closed and completely gassed a lot longer than he could stand and trade on his feet with Stipe Miocic.
I want nothing more than DC to win this fight and ride off into the sunset as one of the top 4 greatest fighters of all time. That's a topic for another day, but that's definitely how I see it.
Very realistic of you.
I see Stipe winning this via 5th round knockout, and it breaks my heart. And really quick, DC fans...
that would be tough.
DC fans who are mad at me, really fast, I have to address you guys. I picked Stipe to win the rematch, and that didn't go so good. So let's see how it goes with me picking Stipe.
Well, both guys have been stopped by the other one at this point, so I do see a little bit more tentativeness, a little bit more strategy than we've seen prior, because they both hopefully will have made adjustments. There's been a long layoff. Both guys have been, studying each other for years now. So I would expect it to be a little more strategic than the first 2 fights we saw, where they were actually pretty action-packed for heavyweight fights.
Oh, they were amazing fights.
Yeah.
I can't overstress Fight Geek. I hope I'm wrong so bad, but I am making the choice, again, based on what I think will happen. And then, a little bit slightly, I'm so emotionally compromised with DC that, I'm picking Stipe because last time I picked DC, he lost. And
it's like a reverse psychology thing with yourself. You're like, if I pick Stipe, maybe it'll make Daniel winning more of a reality.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I don't usually pick fights this way. I never do. But that's why I'm actually looking forward to DC retiring, because then I can go back to being 100% not emotionally compromised.
Fair enough.
All right. Okay.
Can't wait either way.
Can't wait. Biggest heavyweight fight in UFC history by far. Okay, so with that, guys, we're going to take a really quick break, and we'll be right back. Hey guys, it's Phil the MMA Dude, letting you know that this episode of the Split Decision Podcast is brought to you by TotalAggressionClothing.com. Visit www.TotalAggressionClothing.com and use the promo code 46210 to receive a special Split Podcast discount on all Total Aggression hats, shirts, hoodies, and more. Again, that's www.TotalAggressionClothing.com with promo code 46210. Hey guys, it's Phil the MMA Dude here with my always brilliant co-host, the Fight Geek, back with the Split Decision Podcast, episode number 76, and it is now time for my favorite section of all, Listen Up Questions!
Got some good ones tonight. Thanks to everybody for the great questions as usual.
Oh yeah. We really did get some great ones.
Did you fall asleep over there?
Oh, please. Okay, so I've got a great one from at ZanBando99. He says, question for the week. Will Miocic keep fighting if he beats DC again? Hashtag AskSplitPod. Also, will Miocic keep fighting if he loses to DC again?
I believe it's more likely for Stipe to fight again if he loses to DC.
Really?
Yeah, I think,
you think he might retire if he wins?
I definitely think he might retire, especially considering some of the injuries he's dealt with lately, the fact that he has a young family, he's a public servant, he works for the fire department still, the world is changing, and then at this point, him beating DC would be like the end of an era. It would be like the new era of heavyweight coming in, which is going to be the Francises and those guys. I don't think Stipe would have enough juice in the tank to take another run of young, hungry challengers. I mean, he's beaten Francis. He will have won the trilogy with DC. There truly would be nothing left to fight for unless it was John Jones, which, again, I always say this, until I see that fight on booked, I don't really believe that's going to happen.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but if he were to lose, I think it would eat at him, and he would certainly come back. So let's say DC wins, leaves the belt vacant. I could see Stipe fighting for the vacant belt for sure. So that's my answer.
Okay, yeah. I tend to agree. I tend to agree. I don't think that Stipe is going to consider retirement if he wins. Honestly, I just don't. I
but
think.
What more is there to do but lose your belt again?
Well, he can rack up a lot more. Rack up more title defenses. He can solidify his place.
I guess it depends on how he looks, but based on the fact that he's been out for a while, what is he? Stipe's getting older, isn't he? Like 38.
I mean, DC's being expected to fight Stipe at his peak and being judged by it, and he's literally like 42 years old.
Yeah, for sure. I think they're
which I hate. It's so unfair. It's so unfair. I mean, he's a 42-year-old man. You crazy people. Of course, he's not at his peak. Yeah. Stipe better beat him. If I'm a Stipe fan.
He's like a full-time commentator, which obviously takes away from other things. It just is.
Yeah, if I'm a Stipe fan, he'd better beat DC. I mean, DC is a dinosaur. You can't lose that third fight right now. You really can't.
Yeah,
but,
for sure. All right, you got another one?
Yeah, okay, so moving on to my next question that I have. Yeah, I do have it. Okay, this is from Combat Sports with Rhino. What up, Rhino? What up? He says, besides Frankie Edgar, who are a couple of fighters, past or present, that you think competed in the wrong weight class? Who would have been more successful moving up or down? Question mark. Any thoughts? That's a tough one.
Yeah. Frankie Edgar's a very, very good one.
Do you want to say? I mean, do I want to say Jose Aldo going down to bantamweight is bad? I know he just fought for the title, but he was also, he's 0-2 in the division. He was 0-1 when he got the title shot.
No, I think the question is who fought out of their weight class most successfully.
Oh, so like Daniel Cormier by a mile. He's not a light heavyweight. He never was.
Oh, that's true. I'll give you that one.
So Daniel Cormier for sure. There's a big misconception from a lot of casuals, and I don't mean that as a diss to the casuals, guys. I get it. Not everyone has to be obsessed with the sport. You guys have lives. You guys have jobs. I get it. But a lot of people on UFC, on MMA Twitter think that Daniel Cormier only started fighting heavyweight when he took on Stipe, and I can't really handle the casualness of that.
That's your hill to die on, brother.
Okay. I mean, is that harsh? I didn't mean that harsh.
No, I definitely agree with you that he fought out of his weight class for sure at 205 very successfully. So I think I'm racking my brain. That's a great choice.
Yeah. It's tough to think of too many others, to be honest with you. Because I think fighters do a great job of finding their. I guess who I would choose. I mean, maybe this is cheap again. I guess I'll choose Lionheart Smith fighting at middleweight. He became much better at light heavy. But then even a bigger example, take Jared Cannonier, right? He was a heavyweight, went to light heavyweight, went to middleweight. Suddenly at middleweight, he's the bell at the ball. He's fighting Robert Whittaker for that title shot.
Absolutely. That's a good one.
Yeah. So those are my thoughts.
Or Robert Whittaker fighting at 170. I know he was younger, but he had mixed results there. He went to 185 and he turned into an elite fighter.
Masvidal in terms of lightweight versus welterweight.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a push there. I don't think there's as big of a difference. But
What?
yeah, those are some names off the top of our head.
Yeah. Wait, you don't think that Jorge Masvidal's had a better career at welterweight?
I mean, if you were to go through wins and losses, I don't think his resume at welterweight would be elite compared to his lightweight resume. No, I don't.
I don't know about that. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. I respect that. Okay, do you have a question lined up?
Sure, I got one here from MMA by Milliken.
MMA by Milliken, what's up? Love
And
that
he
guy.
says, is Brandon Moreno really ready for a title shot? Hashtag ask split pod. I had to get in the Brandon Moreno question.
MMA by Milliken, I don't know if you know this, but Fight Geek is Moreno's #1 fan, so this is going to be a good answer.
Yeah, well, this is why it will surprise you. This will probably surprise you. No, he's actually not ready for a title shot. But the lack of, a lot of depth in that division makes him one of the top options. I mean, he's Kai Kara France, excuse me, sorry. He's a good win, but he's not a top 3 win in the division. So it's not like Brandon Moreno has had that get me over top contender win. So technically, is he ready for that shot? No, but I mean, I still throw him in there and see how he does. He's super game.
Yeah.
A lot of guys get title shots that aren't ready for them in the UFC, I think.
I mean, last episode, I think you were calling for Moreno.
No, me calling for it because I think that Cody Garbrandt makes no sense doesn't mean that I'm necessarily think that his resume warrants it. You get what I'm saying? I think it warrants it more than Cody coming down with 0 fights and winning 1 of his last 4.
Yeah, sure,
I mean, but that's a that's a situation,
I want you to be honest with me, Fight Geek. I want you to look me in the eyes right now, even though we can't see each other because recently we switched to only audio because that's a long story. But I want you to look me in the eyes virtually, and I want you to tell me you're not excited to see Device and Figueiredo versus Cody No Love Garbrandt.
Of course, I'm excited. It's going to be a great fight.
It's so fun. It's so fun.
Literally, it came out of nowhere. There's no reason to make it. For someone who needs a reason, there's just no reason.
I think it's to give Figgy a name if he gets over on Cody, right?
Well, I get it, but I mean,
yeah, it's it's gonna be. By the way, it's gonna be interesting to see Cody making 125. I mean, that's gonna be rough, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be bizarre, like the Aldo thing. It's just gonna be a bizarre title fight. And will it be fun? Of course. Will I be watching? 100%. Will we be breaking it down right here? Absolutely. But do I think it makes any sense? No.
Yep. Absolutely. Got to agree there. Okay, moving on. Oh, this is a great question from @the_MMA_king. And he says, #AskSplitPod. Do you think if O'Malley loses, then his hype train will go away? The way he loses could be important too. So here are some suggestions to consider. First round knockout, unanimous decision loss, split decision loss. And I think that's a really fun question.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, his stock takes a big hit if he gets knocked out in the first round. I mean, he's young enough now to where no matter what, he can bounce back and still be a title contender. But getting knocked out now would knock some of that shine off of him. If he loses a very close split decision in an action-packed fight, I do not think his stock will drop at all.
You don't think his stock will drop at all?
Well, he won't be in line for a title shot in 1 or 2 fights, but I don't think people will give up, hope on his talent or his potential. He's still so young. If he's in an action-packed fight versus a guy who has, 24 pro fights, which is quite a bit more experience than he has a good showing for himself. I don't think it hurts him all that much. Obviously, a win fast-tracks him into, top 5 consideration. But a loss doesn't necessarily kill his hype unless it's a brutal, one-sided beatdown,
Okay, so let me ask you this real fast. So and this is not part of the question, I'm just curious. So Sugar Sean O'Malley, let's say he beats Chito Vera. Who do you put him against? Because you just said top 5. I was thinking, at highest, I was thinking they'd put him against, Rafael Sunsao, number 8.
See, I'm thinking, the winner of that, I don't know. I guess that'd be a little much for him. But I mean, from Eddie Wineland to Cheeto Vera, he's going to be in line. So, yeah, I guess Rafael Sunsao doesn't really do much for me. We just saw him knocked out, and I think Sean would have quite a reach advantage on him.
That's exactly why you make it. They're clearly trying to build him up.
Right. So, yeah, maybe you could do a fight like that before you get to, like, the Sandhagen-Moraes type fight.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would think he still needs, one more middle step.
Yeah, we'll have to see. That the middle step is this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it stinks that Cheeto's not. It stinks that Cheeto's not ranked. It stinks that Cheeto's an unranked opponent because he's not going to get any credit when he wins.
Which is absurd because Cheeto's one of the best, well-rounded bantamweights there is.
I agree with you. I don't really understand, to be honest, why he's not ranked at all.
Hasn't he won like 6 of 7?
Yeah, he's completely unranked. They could not put him in the bantamweight top 15, which stinks because I think you're right that he's better.
But he's rated 80th at featherweight.
No, I completely agree with you that he's better than what you're saying. It just stinks because I know that the casuals, if Sean O'Malley wins that via first round knockout, the casuals will treat that like the Wineland win.
But that's not true because the casuals are obsessed with Sean O'Malley. He's for the casuals. He's exciting. So if he gets a knockout, it don't matter who it's against.
No, I know. By the way, I like O'Malley a lot. I'm not some anti-O'Malley guy. I'm just saying I think I think
it's hard for him to lose here unless he takes a brutal one-sided beating. I mean,
right.
Otherwise, he's a young guy who's stepping up in competition, and a win definitely catapults him into a top 10 matchup.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Okay, moving on. This is from a OG of the podcast, Kev. That's at KevC918. Do you guys feel that Jones could benefit from a camp switch? In my opinion, he's done all he can at Jackson's, and going to work with someone like Trevor Whitman or Dwayne Ludwig could bring back the old John. Thanks, and keep up the great work. #AskSplitPod.
Well, I do think it's interesting to consider Jones leaving, especially to go to someone like Trevor Whitman and adapt his striking. I don't know if
Jones would like.
No. Well, Jones is
Whitman requires hard work and dedication.
I'm just saying, bring back the old John. I don't know if you're going to be bringing back the old John. Obviously,
you got to bring back the old John with turnable. You can't bring him back with any non-PEDs.
Turn back the clock. I mean, no, the guy's older now than he was when he started out. So
I think you mean Turinable the clock.
Turinable the clock back.
Yeah, exactly.
No, anyways, I think it'd be interesting. I don't know if you get any more results out of it. At this point, it seems like John kind of runs his own career over there in New Mexico, so he probably wouldn't like that, in my opinion. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Don't know how he'd respond to it, but I definitely think that his game planning has gotten super stale from Jackson's, which has been a reputation of theirs for a while, even with GSP.
Oh yeah. Totally agree. I would be shocked if he leaves Jackson's though, but we'll see. Okay, so moving on. These are great. Again, guys, thank you so much for the great questions. I mean, seriously, we really got asked a lot of great ones this week, and the show's better because of it. Much better. And this is from Eduardo, another OG at Landa Crew. What a great question. What are your thoughts on Ray Borg being released? #AskSplitPod.
It's 100% unfortunate, but I think it's probably I can see why the company made the move. Just too many cancellations, just too many, pulling out of fights, missing weight, just not being reliable. It sucks. That's my overall sentiment, but I can definitely understand why it happened.
Yeah, I think it's honestly one of the saddest stories in
because
UFC
I do
history.
feel like the UFC, they gave him a lot of opportunities, probably because of what he was dealing with. But at some point, you got to show up and you got to make weight. The show has to go on as far as the business is concerned.
I know. I guess I'm just being a little bit of like a corny, sad sap because I think about, for example, Fight Geek. I think of UFC 223. Ray Borg was ready to compete, feeling great. Conor McGregor obviously made the decision he did with the dolly, and the glass flew into Ray's eye, damaging his eye, obviously taking him completely off of the card, taking a lot of money out of his family's pockets to help their child who has severe
So
terminal
yes,
illness.
yes, we all know the story.
It's
Yes.
just unfortunate that McGregor had to do that to him because he never did recover. So I hope it was worth it, Connor.
Oh, Connor ruined his whole career. That's an interesting take.
I don't know, man. He didn't have
The
to. He
guy
didn't have
missed
to do that,
weights
man.
like 6 times in his career and had like 20 cancellations, but it's the one night Connor did that is the whole entire reason.
No, it's not the whole entire reason, but it's 100% a part of it, and that sucks.
That's an interesting take.
You don't agree?
No, I mean I don't think it helped anything, but I think that was maybe 10% of what hardships he experienced, and 90% of it was missing weight and other fights and not showing up and pulling out and stuff like that. I
No,
don't think
for sure. But it was all, I know. It's a complicated issue, honestly, Fikey. But, I just feel terrible because I cannot imagine what it would be like to have a terminally ill child.
Don't feel too terrible because there's a decent chance that he can go make more money fighting catch weight in Bellator. So
I'm scared he's about to not have a career and he's not going to put food on the table.
think about Bellator, for instance. How many of their fights are random 130-pound fights or 140-pound
Yeah,
fights?
I hope Bellator picks him up.
Oh, I definitely think they should. He would be an interesting fighter on their roster. And like I said, they're much more loose with especially their lighter weight classes. You see guys performing out of weight class or at catch weight all the time. I think that's a no-brainer for Ray Borg, personally.
Absolutely.
Because he has a big enough name based on what we're discussing now and the fact that he fought Demetrius Johnson that he's an asset to pick up, at least for roster depth, in my opinion.
Yeah, and then okay, I don't like to get sidetracked during the questions, but just you brought it up really quick. Corey Anderson, thoughts on Corey Anderson going to Bellator? I made a joke earlier in the week calling him, Corey levels to this Anderson, and then saying he, can't handle the levels of the UFC and leaving. But guys, look, it was a joke. Okay, relax. I'm trying to be funny.
Corey
sometimes.
Anderson's a solid fighter. I wouldn't say he's elite, but
DC speaks very highly of him.
Well, I mean, he's a top 10 light heavyweight in the UFC for sure, which means he's a top 4 light heavyweight in Bellator. So he'll have a shorter path to the title.
I think he gets to Bader. I don't think he beats
I do too,
Bader.
and I think he could actually give Bader an interesting fight based on his skill set. So smart move by Corey Anderson. I think, Bellator needs roster depth. And Corey Anderson is exactly that. He's a guy we all recognize. If you put him in a main event versus a handful of guys, we'll tune in and check it out.
Absolutely, and this was touched on quickly by a few people over the week, but it's worth pointing out. And I don't like Ali Abdelaziz that much. People know that, but I've got to give him some serious credit here. Corey Anderson was his client, and he was the one who was able to convince the UFC to release Corey from his contract essentially for free and get him to Bellator. And it's very hard to imagine any other agent or manager being able to pull that off.
Yeah, glad it worked out for everybody, and Corey's happy where he's at.
Exactly. Okay, this next question comes from my man, OG, Octopus Toes, at Octopus_Toes. What are your top 3 MMA trilogies, and where on that list do you think the DC Stipe trilogy will place after this weekend? #AskSplitPod. Woo, I love it. Love that.
Yeah, so I think my top trilogies personally would be Vanderlei versus Rampage, and then Matt Hughes versus GSP.
Okay.
And where does the Stipe one rank? I mean, I guess I'll have to see the third fight, but I mean, it's up there. I don't have as much emotional attachment to either of those fighters, but the action in the first 2 have been great. So barring the third fight, I mean, it could definitely be up there with my personal favorites. One that I'm waiting on is obviously Conor versus Nate.
Right.
I love the first 2 Conor versus Nate fights. So that trilogy to me would be the biggest trilogy in UFC history if and when it happens.
Can I just?
But other than that,
go ahead.
That's I kind of place it in that range, top 5 maybe.
I'm shocked that you didn't name one. There was one on the tip of my tongue, and I'm shocked you didn't name it, man. You did not name Cain Velasquez versus Junior Dos Santos.
Well, again, those were all one-sided. The action
The
wasn't
third?
that
The
great.
third?
The third fight was pretty one-sided, dude. It was not. Dos Santos had a better showing, but I mean, he was brutally beaten in that fight.
Whoa. He was brutally beaten at the end.
He was, yeah. Well, of course. I mean, that's.
I don't know. I
Cain-
think
Cain
you're
drags you into
misremembering
deep
it a
water.
little, man. The third was competitive.
The first one lasted 20 seconds. The second
Yup.
one was a complete wash by Cain.
Yep.
And the third one was Junior Dos Santos trying not to get murdered by Cain. So, I mean, it's a good trilogy, but it really doesn't rank up there with like Wand and Rampage knocking each other out back and forth and then coming to the UFC and doing it. Or the Matt Hughes, where Matt Hughes subs GSP at the end of the first round. GSP comes back and then dominates him twice to become the greatest welterweight of all time.
That's in there. The Hughes GSP trilogy is definitely in there for me, to be clear.
Yeah, well, the way that GSP loses the first one and then comes back, I personally think the best GSP of all time is the GSP that came back and beat Matt Hughes. So, so again, it's a great trilogy. I'll have to see how the third one plays out before I really can place it. But, yeah, my two trilogies are Wanderlei, Rampage, and the other one, sorry, drawing a blank again.
Wanderlei,
Rampage, and Hughes Silva.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. All right. Moving on. Ooh, love this question. This is from @rebel_redwood. And he says, #AskSplitPod. How do you think Michael Chandler would fare against the top 5 in the UFC? And if you had your choice, who would you match him against next? We're going to talk about what happened this weekend?
Go ahead. You start.
I mean, no, long story short, I made a little lighthearted joke about Michael Chandler. By the way, I love Michael Chandler. I saw him live against Pitbull at Bellator. I saw him lose the belt, unfortunately, but I was rooting for Michael Chandler. He's a great fighter. I made a little bit of a Twitter joke with putting the meme of Akon pulling the crowd member on stage and throwing him off, and I said, the top 5 lightweights welcoming Michael Chandler to the division.
Yeah.
That was, anyways, so Chandler responded, basically said, haha, that's funny, but I can't wait to prove you wrong. So then I recommended Michael Chandler versus Dan Hooker to Michael, and he immediately responded and said, let's make it. I'll do it. And I think that's the fight. I think that's 100% the fight.
It's a good fight. I don't know if that's my favorite fight to debut.
So
Michael
who would you,
Chandler
who else? Who's better to debut him against?
I think the Bronx is a more exciting fight stylistically.
Really?
I think, I mean, you got the power wrestler versus the slick striking submission artist.
Chandler has no chance against the Bronx. Let me just put it out there. I mean, he doesn't have a chance.
Maybe. I mean, Paul Felder is more of an interesting matchup than Dan Hooker, but I'm not saying the Dan Hooker matchup's bad at all, but any of those guys are very solid choices.
Yeah, definitely. And by the way, I mean, just to be really fast, I have nothing but respect for Michael Chandler. I'm well aware of what he's accomplished in Bellator, and it's very special.
And he's got super heavy hands. There's nothing you can't discredit that. He can catch anyone.
The thing for me, Fight Geek, the thing I keep getting stuck on is he's 34. I just think he waited too long to do any damage at lightweight. And I'd like to, and he said he'd like to prove me wrong, and I'd like to see him prove me wrong. But I don't think he will prove me wrong. I really don't.
Well, we're going to have to wait and see where he signs before we get there that far. Don't count your chickens before they hatch. Is that
I think that is the saying, actually. Okay.
So it's going to be interesting to see where he signs because I think there's not a bad fight for him in the UFC, but he is the Bellator guy. So until I see it, I don't believe it.
All right. Okay, this next question is from Peter V. That's @PV1224. Oh, man, I don't know if I like this question. I'm just looking at it now. Which U.S. politician, not a good start, past or present, would have made a good MMA fighter in his or her physical prime? #AskSplitPod. P.S. I need another
politician. Well, that's an easy one for me. I'm going to go with Jesse the Body Ventura.
Oh, great answer, and I agree.
That's a no-brainer.
He said, P.S. I need another Peter V. What up? Like I need air to breathe. So everyone just I don't know, turn the volume down for just 1 second now because I'm gonna do that. Peter V, what up?
Trademark that, Phil. Make him
I
pay you 50 cents a week. No, I'm just
it's money in the bank, bro. I'll be a millionaire.
So yeah, Jesse Ventura is the no-brainer there, right? Is there any
No, there's no other
that have
answer,
turned into
honest. I mean,
senators?
no other answer really. I don't know. Yeah. I don't have like a clever other politician. I don't really follow politicians that closely. So I'm not sure.
Cool. All right, got another one?
Okay. So moving along, this question comes from our OG Kev Jitsu at Kev Jitsu. Who is a current top 15 fighter that you think will definitely become champion? Any division. That's a great one.
So tough. So many fighters.
I know. Right.
Got anybody off the top of your head?
Yeah, and it's a complicated one, and it's a very all right, look, I believe Kevin Lee is going to be lightweight champion in 6 years.
Okay. Now that you've said that, it makes my
jeez.
It makes me feel a lot less crazy because I'm sticking to my guns. Macy Barber will be the champion someday.
Of flyweight?
The women?
Wait, isn't she a flyweight?
Well,
women's flyweight? What, is Valentina going to die?
Well, I mean, at some point she's going to age and retire. Macy's 21 years old. You don't think in 10 years when Valentina's, 30 some odd or 40 some odd years old, she doesn't have a chance?
I don't know, man.
Years?
I kind of think she still won't have a chance.
Well, I don't think Valentina will be fighting for 5 more years. Macy will just be hitting her prime at that point.
Okay. I hope you're right. We'd love to see it. And then I think that, who else? Tatiana Suarez, I mean, if she fixes stuff, I think she'll become strawweight champ.
Yeah, but this is you guaranteeing it.
Oh, I guaranteed top 15? I don't know, guys. That's hard. Can I say Justin Gaethje?
Sure.
I mean, it's a lame answer. I'm well aware.
Considering he's ranked number 1 in the world.
Yeah, I get it. Thanks, Spikey. I know.
Way to take a big chance there.
Okay. All right, great. Okay. So, moving on.
Those are our choices.
Yeah, okay. So, this is from Oscar Silva. That's at WWE UFC _fan. What would you rather see next for DC, assuming he doesn't want to ride off into the sunset as champion? DC versus Lesnar, a fight he would probably win and add a big name to his resume, or the Jones trilogy at heavyweight, where we could see DC lose and damage his legacy. #AskSplitPod.
I'm just no fun here. I don't want to see either of those fights.
I don't either.
I really don't want to see DC fight again. As we just said, he's 42 years old. He's a full-time, desk job with the UFC. This is his swan song, so I really can't see any interesting fights beyond this. This is the one. I've been saying this for it seems like years now that this is the trilogy that needs to happen for his resume, for his legacy. So
yeah, absolutely.
After this, there's really no more.
Couldn't agree more. And for those forgetting, after Jones returned at UFC 232 and beat Gustafsson very easily, he got the stoppage with his last. That was the last fight where he popped really hot for PEDs. Vegas obviously refused to sanction the fight. They had to move it across state lines. Then Jones got his final stoppage. You can tell me or not if that's a coincidence. I'll leave it up to the audience. But Jones obviously had a lot of time after that to move up to heavyweight to challenge DC for that heavyweight belt. Obviously, he wanted zero part in that. It would be very unfortunate if DC was suckered into taking that fight when he is a dinosaur. But you got to give Jones credit. That is such a Jones move. There's nothing more Jones than that.
DC's making money right now, so he doesn't need to take those fights.
I know, but you've got to admit, that would be such classic John Jones, waiting out until DC's definitely too old. And then saying, let's go.
That would be on DC if he takes that fight, not John Jones.
John Jones could have taken that fight with DC for over a year, and guess what? He fucking sat down and he ate his little soup.
DC hasn't been the champion in over a year. What are you talking about?
I'm saying, When DC was champ for
Yeah,
a year,
we know what you're saying. All
Jones
right,
could have taken it. He didn't want any part of it. Now that
You got
Daniel's
another question?
really old, things have changed. Classic.
You don't even remember what the question was.
Oh, I do. Okay, so will DC ever get Popeye's sponsorship? This is from at Armenian Jiu-Jitsu. At Armenian Jiu-Jitsu. Thank you so much. I believe.
Will he ever what?
Will DC ever get a Popeye's sponsorship?
Oh, Popeye's.
Come on, this is a serious question, man. Come on. Listen, it's a great question, Armenian Jiu-Jitsu. First of all, welcome to the show. I think this is your first question ever. Love it. I think that Derek Lewis, unfortunately, sort of swarmed that market.
He's got that market cornered.
Yeah, and if I'm DC and I'm offended by it, I'm hurt. Try to look at the Popeye competitors and go to them.
DC's getting paid by ESPN.
I'm aware. I'm well aware that DC is getting very well paid. Yeah,
DC's doing just fine. He's probably making more money today than he's ever made in his life. So
he 100% is.
Yeah, so I mean, the need for him to take extra fights or chase John Jones is just not there.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I've actually gotten another question, and this is from at Sammy J Brown 1. He says, after seeing Luke Rockhold back training at AKA, it got me thinking about whether he's the best fighter to never live up to his potential. I know he was champ, but he looked like he was going to be so dominant after the Weidman fight. Which fighter do you think is the best fighter to never live up to his potential, and is it Luke Rockhold?
Well, first of all, I don't believe you can say someone did not live up to their potential when they reached the absolute apex of the sport. He fulfilled his potential as a champion, so I don't agree with that at all. He 100% fulfilled his potential. Someone who didn't fulfill their potential, someone like there's guys that come to my head, but not guys that were champions. Sage Northcutt didn't live up to his potential. Guys like they brought in Brandon Thatch, who didn't live up to his potential. Thiago Silva is a guy.
I mean, if anyone didn't live up to his potential, let's just be completely real and a little harsh. Joseph Benavidez. Is there any bigger failure than that? And I know he's great, and I know that sounds harsh, but there's no bigger spotlight failure than Joey B. Is that unfair?
I don't know. I'm not saying – I don't believe that Joseph Benavidez's potential was so much greater than what he eventually reached. So I don't really believe that. I think Joseph Benavidez maximized his talent.
He went 0-3 in UFC title fights and 0-4 if you include WEC.
Yeah, well, he's also limited. He's small. He doesn't have a long reach. So
that's what flyweights are, right?
Yeah, well, even by his weight class standard, he was limited in those ways. So against a guy like Demetrius Johnson, who was not limited in those ways.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a tough question because when I think of guys not living up to their potential, I think about guys who were billed as surefire can't miss champions who never reached it. Almost like a Brandon Vera comes to mind. He was billed as a future champ and didn't reach either of those heights. So
Jacare,
sure. Jacare came in. Another one is who's the big muscular guy they signed from the WEC back in the day? Hector Lombard.
Oh, yeah.
Big disappointment. And I guess you could say Alistair Overeem to a certain extent.
Yeah, it's wild to me. It's wild to me that Overeem never won the belt.
But not Luke Rockhold, because Luke Rockhold beat a defending champion, Chris Weidman, handily and was 100% elite at that point.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Okay, so this next question from at Matt, the MMA fan. What's up, Matt? Do you guys agree with the opinion that European fighters, more specifically British fighters, can't wrestle at a high level? That's an interesting one. What do you?
Is this here? And somebody, please, if any of our listeners are from that area of the world, just enlighten me.
Oh yeah, please light us up if we're wrong, guys. Like seriously.
Yeah. Because I've been told that they don't wrestle in school as much as we do here. So, for instance, we have wrestling in elementary school and stuff, and develop that wrestling skill. But in England and in Britain, over there, they don't necessarily have wrestling at an early age. I could be wrong. That's what I heard, and that's why they don't have has developed wrestling later on. Obviously, with world-class coaching, they can add it, but they start from a step back to the U.S. and some of the other parts of the world in terms of wrestling. That's just the way I've understand it. I could be wrong. Someone let me know.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree, but I will say this, Fight Geek. I think that, English fighters can't wrestle. I think that's totally overblown. 100%.
Well, sure, but I think, obviously,
I mean, Darren Till has great
and
defense.
Boxers, though, by trade, right? Isn't that what?
Yeah, definitely. But are you going to tell me that Darren Till can't stop a takedown? He did that.
No, but I mean, is it so crazy that people in the Netherlands are better kickboxers than us in the U.S.?
No, of course not.
Exactly. So it's the same kind of dynamic. It's what you grow up doing. It's the skills and the sports that you follow and that kids play and that they learn. So I think that's where it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, so yeah, I guess in short, I do sort of agree with that. But at the same time, I wouldn't freak out. I wouldn't freak out.
Think about the elite wrestlers in the UFC. They've all been wrestling since they were 5.
I know. My point is, I wouldn't be, if I'm an English fan listening to this show right now, I'm not freaking out about it.
No, yeah, for sure. It's not like you can't add it. As a matter of fact,
Darren Till's great. Right. They're all improving. They're going to be just fine.
Michael Bisping had amazing takedown defense.
I was just going to bring him up. Right.
So, and he was a guy who really was kind of a weak wrestler to begin with and developed, more than enough to get by on, for sure.
And by the way, another decent wrestler. I can't believe I forgot to mention Leon Edwards.
Yes, that's a good one.
Edwards can wrestle.
Probably, just off the top of my head, one of the only, fighters from over there that I think of as having a strong wrestling game. So, good call.
Yeah, absolutely.
But again, anybody from over there, let us know about wrestling in school and if it's popular and if kids do it and all that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I would love to hear that myself. Okay, this is from Sith Lord. That's at MMLXXX. Ooh, little inappropriate. It's PG-13 there. I like it, Sith Lord. Okay. If O'Malley wins his fight, what do you think is next for him? A relatively big step in level or something lesser? For example, do we see an O'Malley versus a Sun Tzu, or do you get something a little less like the winner of the Dotson-Merab fight? So really quickly, Fight Geek, I'll just say my opinion here is that I think that I think that O'Malley will not get put up against the Dotson-Merab winner. Oh, there's a young girl yelling outside. Hopefully everything's okay.
I got a name for you.
Go ahead.
Rob Font.
I like it. Sold.
Yeah.
Done.
Yeah, number 10, Rob Font. I think that's a tough fight if
I really like a Sun Tzu.
Gets through it.
I really like a Sun Tzu, too.
I mean, a Sun Tzu is going to turn into that gatekeeper guy where all the prospects come and beat.
Correct, he is.
And I just don't know what that proves right now. I know he's had a great career, but after taking a big knockout loss to Cody, is that really going to put Sean on the map to knock him out and do the same thing?
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a good point.
Or how about this, Sean O'Malley versus Dominic Cruz?
Yeah, that's been thrown out a lot. I mean,
that would be the name to build Sean O'Malley off of.
Is Dominic Cruz really going to take that fight? Like, what is the incentive? That sounds like there's zero.
Right. Yeah, there is zero incentive.
Right. But I definitely agree there.
At this fight, at this point, it seems like Dominic Cruz should fight Rafael Assunção as I'm looking at the rankings.
Yeah, I agree.
So I'm going to go with Rob Font. I think that's the fight, number 10.
All right, I like it. Okay, this question from Jalen Ware. Love Jalen at Strive2B _ great, GR8. He says, DC said Stipe better bring his wrestling shoes. Could trying to wrestle a strong, aggressive heavyweight that has above good takedown defense tire DC out even faster? Could his approach backfire on him? #AskSplitPod.
My question is I think DC will be heavier than Stipe, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, it would be the other way around. So Stipe would be carrying the bigger, heavier wrestler in those exchanges. Stipe is traditionally a lighter, more mobile heavyweight. So I think as far as wrestling goes, DC would be comfortable with that. I mean, DC has come up training against Prime Kane, who's obviously a lot more to handle in those situations than Stipe. What are you doing over there, Phil?
Sorry about that.
Cut me off. Do you agree training with Cain Velasquez for a career is more than enough to prepare you for those situations?
I agree, but as I said in my pick, Fight Geek, that was very hard to make. I'm just really concerned that the constant wrestling will get DC gassed by the force.
And that's why I said you won't see constant wrestling. You'll just see more wrestling mixed in spots because he failed to use it at all in the last fight. You will not see 25 minutes of wrestling. I'll put money on that.
Okay. Again,
but I do believe he will mix it in much more than he did in the past fight.
Okay, great. I want nothing more. I want nothing more than to see DC win. But as I said before, guys, I pick based on what I think will happen, not on what I want to happen. And I still think Stipe does win. I hope to God I'm wrong. Okay, this question that I did not do a good job in terms of being the DJ for. This is from my man, Kairos MMA, at Kairos MMA. Give him a follow also on YouTube. And here is his question right now.
What's up, Phil? What is up, Fight Geek? Let me give you a little bit of context before I ask you this question. We've been spoiled as MMA fans. A lot of people did not think that this was going to work. They did not think we'd be able to put on shows during a pandemic. They did not think it would be successful. They did not think this many people would actually make it to the cage. But that has happened, and they proved those people wrong. But we're starting to see a lot more people pull out now than in the front end. Do you think this is a trend that we're going to see more and more of now that the crisis has started to wean off a little bit? We saw the Yoel Romero and the Uriah Hall fight had to get canceled. We saw Ian Cutelaba, that fight had to get canceled. There was another fight Jeff Neal had to pull out due to injuries. Obviously, these people aren't contracting COVID. But nonetheless, we're having a lot more pullouts now than we did at the beginning of the crisis. And I want to know, are we going to continue seeing this? Or are these just extreme cases, just 1 in a million chance, oh, well, he got hit, freak accident, that sort of thing. Let me know, guys. Hope you're doing well. Be safe. What?
Love it.
Yeah, great question. There. I know, if it's just coincidence that we're seeing more pullouts as of late. I think obviously now that we've gotten back to somewhat of a regular schedule, guys have got back in training camps. Obviously, potential for passing COVID is a little higher when you're join together to train in groups and stuff like that. So maybe it's just people getting back to work a little more regularly that's bringing this second wave. I honestly don't know. All things considered, I think the UFC and the NBA off the top of my head have done a great job. Without those two, I don't know what I would have done over the last few months.
As has the NHL. As has the NHL.
As has the NHL. So it can be done. I don't think that any of the leagues expect it to be perfect. Obviously, there's going to be cases. The percentages are there. It is what it is. You do your best. So I just think it's, like you said, it's a one-off here, a variable there, a specific situation there, things you can't really control. Overall, I think it's been a pretty positive experience, and as a fan, it's been great.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to expand on that really quick, I agree with everything you said, Fight Geek, but I would almost take it a little bit further. You were highly complimentary of the NBA, which I am too, and I've been following it, but you watch the NBA, you turn on the NBA games, and at least for me, it's just so distracting, the fake fans.
I disagree. I think the virtual fans are awesome. I think it brings an ambiance.
Okay,
I think it brings a level of energy.
Well, we're an MMA show. I don't want to get too far into it. Right. People are going to get annoyed. But I just wanted to say, I guess my only point there, Fight Geek, is you see Major League Baseball. It's like they're canceling 4 games at a time every other day. I don't know how they're going to get through the season. I highly doubt they will. The NBA and the NHL are struggling, but it looks like they're going to somehow succeed. And then you compare that to the UFC, where it almost looks like they didn't even take a bad hit. They didn't even almost didn't even take a step back, right?
Right.
And it's incredible. It's truly incredible. All the other sports are, even the ones that are doing the best besides MMA, are in shambles. That's the truth. They're in shambles. And they just canceled college football today. Everything's getting canceled, and you really got to give credit. I know people say, "Oh, you're sucking up to Dana." Look, I criticize Dana all the time when he deserves it, but guys, come on, you got to give him credit.
No, his business wherewithal, and you can tell his will to put on his shows is something that really shows through. So, again, as a fan, I really appreciate it because the last few months would have been even worse without the great MMA action the UFC has put on.
Even worse, they would have been literally unbearable. Right?
So, yeah, I just think it's, life happens, situations happen, people are going to get sick, people are going to pull out, people are going to miss weight. This is all part of what's going on right now. I think we just do our best. And, it sucks we lost that Kutalaba fight this weekend. I mean, we lost that just a few hours ago, it seems. So it's a day-to-day operation, it seems like.
Yep, absolutely. Really quick, because I think new questions keep popping up, and I want to make sure I don't miss them. This is my man at Yugi MMA. He's got a great show. He's a Jones fan, but I love this guy, one of my closest friends on Twitter. He says, who do we sacrifice to Amanda Nunes next? Fight Geek, take us away. Who do we sacrifice to Amanda Nunes next? You tell me, man.
Well, what is her name? Sorry, drawing a blank. I'm pulling it up right now.
I mean, literally, it doesn't matter who they sacrifice. It's a sacrifice.
That's true.
But if I'm Amanda, the last thing I want to do is retire.
Irene Aldana, that's the one.
Irene Aldana, right, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, that's really the only girl I haven't seen her beat up yet, so that seems kind of interesting.
Aspen Lad.
Relatively
Aspen Lad.
Say again?
Aspen Lad, please don't disrespect Aspen.
Aspen Lad just got knocked out and blew her knee out. She's not going to be fighting anytime soon, right?
I'm never going to forgive you for this. We'll talk offline. Okay.
Hey, man, they're just facts. She got knocked out by GDR, and then she blew out her knee, right?
I don't know. She might listen to this. She follows me. I don't know. Aspen, you'll be champ soon. Okay, all right. I don't think she actually listens. Okay, moving on. This says, I believe the last question. This is from the Godfather. Cyrus King is the Godfather. This is what's another really complimentary? The Emperor? I don't know. The Emperor of MMA Twitter, Jim Asoon. And here is his amazing question. Jim's amazing. Follow him, guys, if you're not. Just trust me on that. Uncle Jim. I'm trying to download his question as we speak. I'm having that fun nightmare situation where it doesn't work, which is always awesome.
You don't have to download it, buddy. Just press play.
Okay, thanks. Got it right here.
Buck Casuals. Phil, Fight Geek, we're both doing well. This UFC Vegas 6 was a pretty good card. I think you probably see my comments on Weidman, so I won't even talk about that. Actually, I will talk about that. Let's do that as a question. What do you think is next for Weidman? I guess he just beat the number 11th ranked guy, so he should be a ranked number now. So give him that Edmund kid, Sabajian, or however you pronounce it, I don't know. Let's put those two together, see how they do. They're right close in the rankings. But, I don't know. That's my question for you guys this week. Keep up the great work. Love the podcast. And it's always 420, kids. Peace.
Jim Asoon, the man, the myth, the legend, with the great question.
I got a couple options here. Now that Uriah Hall and Romero's off, Uriah Hall in the future makes a lot of sense versus Chris Weidman. I think they fought in the regional scene before UFC, so that'd be a fun one to see again.
Oh yeah, that's a good call, man.
And then Ian Heinisch, for some reason, calls out to me. Ian Heinisch versus Chris Weidman. Probably be very similar to this last weekend's Akhmedov fight, but it's another fight where Chris could potentially beat a top 15 guy.
And obviously, we already mentioned Edmund.
Yeah, we mentioned Edmund. I think that might be a bit much for Edmund coming off a loss. They're probably going to want to build him back up a touch, not throw him in there with a former world champion. So I think that Uriah Hall or Ian Heinisch makes a lot of sense.
Okay. I hear you. I mean, I think we talked about this last week. I think Edmund I don't think we need to baby him because he lost to Derek Brunson. I think we need to give Derek Brunson credit. And
well, I think the Edmund we saw 2 weeks ago and the Chris Weidman we saw last weekend would favor Chris Weidman favorably, especially in the later rounds.
Yeah, it's fair. I guess I feel deep down, I feel a little sorry for Edmund. I think people have really turned on him since that loss.
You're handing out the feelings tonight for everybody. You're just feeling sorry for the whole roster.
I mean, yeah, I guess I felt a little sorry for Ray Borg.
Such a compassionate guy.
I mean, that's what I am. They call me Mr. Compassionate. Ask Michael Chandler.
Exactly. John Jones.
Jones loves me.
All right.
All right. Are those all the questions for this week?
Hopefully. Let's end this thing before any more come in.
Okay, but really quick, before you take it away, Fight Geek, guys, I just want to really quickly say, if you like the show, if you like the podcast, please hit that subscribe button on YouTube, on Spotify, on iTunes, wherever you're listening to us. It makes a tremendous difference. We would never ask for this, but if you could give us a 5 out of 5 star review, I would never ask for it, but boy, would I appreciate it. But seriously, hit that subscribe button. It does wonders for us, especially if you'd like the show to keep continuing. Please do subscribe. And with that, Fight Geek sounds bored and annoyed, so I'll let him take it away.
Stealing all my end of the show thunder, Phil.
My bad, though. My bad.
Anyways, guys, as usual, you can find us on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, Google Play, Stitcher, and more. I'm at the Fight Geek MMA. He's at Phil the MMA Dude. We're at Split_podcast. 4 words, the Split Decision Podcast. Thanks for tuning in, and we will talk to you next week. Peace.
Peace.